Hey there, welcome back, science fiction fans. We got a good episode for you tonight. I'm Salim Sitterwalla, and I'm joined as always by my friend and co-host Carl Ames. Carl, how's your day? How's your evening? How's life?
Everything's good. Everything's Irie. I'm happy to be here again and ready to talk more movies, more comics, and all that stuff.
Yes, we're gonna get our nerd on in a little bit here, but it's funny. You and I were talking before we started. Uh, we have our spider adjacent shirts on. I got my Venom, and you had your Miles Morales. So we're matching of sorts today.
Yeah, it's very appropriate. Like I told him, I didn't even do it on purpose. I just pulled the shirt out. I happened to have a lot of stuff like this.
Yeah, I went to Target. Like they have a lot of nice graphic T-shirts. They have a bunch. I got like an Xmas one. I got um a Marvel one that has like the periodic tables of Marvel, and
Hmm.
it's like it's like the periodic tables, but it's Marvel characters.
Oh, okay.
Um, and then I got a Batman one, and then I got this one. So there were some nice selections. I was just like, yeah, whatever. I'll spend money that I don't need to spend right now, but I'll spend it anyways.
Yeah, it's like that sometimes. I think I got this shirt at C2E2 a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay,
Um,
nice.
I I do a lot of wardrobe shopping at C2E2. It's just kind of like, okay, let's go to Artist Alley and get some new posters, and then let's go to wherever they have clothes and buy a bunch of new T-shirts and hoodies and stuff.
Right. So, but yeah, they have a good few selections there. And as we're talking about our spider adjacent shirts, Spider Man, they did release a brand new poster of the Spider-Man No Way Home, and I thought we could talk about it because I feel like there's some stuff in this poster that gives away, what's going to be happening in the movie potentially. Although, if you want to throw up the poster on the side as we're talking, so we can kind of look at it. Um, so, looking at again at the poster, we see the little things in here. Like first off, we obviously see the major one is the Doctor Octopus's tentacles. In the background, you see Green Goblin, uh, on his glider, and my guess is the lightning is Electro,
Hmm.
and the little dust back there, I think, is potentially Sandman.
Right, right. Yeah, and this
What?
is like the first. Like we've had the trailer already, and we seen Doc Ock. We know that this is the Doc Ock from the Sam Raimi movies, the Tobey Maguire movies. It is the exact same one, but this is the first confirmation that this is also the same Green Goblin from those Tobey Maguire Sam Raimi movies because he's got the same glider, the same costume, relatively the same. So that's for sure what we're going to see in this movie. How much we don't know. But then the Sandman's also from the Sam Raimi movies, if you remember
Right.
Spider-Man 3, but Electro's from the Amazing Spider-Man movies with Andrew Garfield, which is a whole nother franchise set in a whole nother universe. So we already know that the multiverse stuff is happening with not just Spider-Man, but also without throughout the rest of the MCU. That's kind of a theme of Phase 4, and we don't know to what extent yet how that's going to affect things. In particular, Spider-Man here. And then after we've also seen the Venom movie, its post-credit sequence. So I don't think Venom's going to show up in this movie, at least not in the main part of the movie. But in the very least, we know things are moving and shaking in the multiverse of Marvel, and something's happening to cause all of this to occur.
Definitely. I have two questions for you. I wanted to get your thoughts on some stuff.
Hmm.
So first thought is like, what do you think this face is? Does this look like a face to you down here in the bottom right corner?
No, it
Does
does not. It does not.
it
I've
does
looked
not?
so much. No, it does not. I've looked so much down there because I'm like, Is it? Is there more? Is there anything else? Because like you don't need to zoom and enhance too much to see all the things in here. Maybe the sand you thought it was clouds, or you just you thought it might have been smoke to an untrained eye, but it for the most part it's sand. And then the lightning, maybe it's just lightning in the sky. But it's not necessarily electro, but especially since it's a different color too, because Electro's lightning in the Amazing Spider-Man 2 is blue,
Right.
and his lightning here is changed color. So things have changed, but we are, full confirmed. We know Jamie Foxx is back to play Electro.
Hmm.
They already spilled the beans on that. So that's Electro, but I don't see anything else. I've heard the rumors though that there's supposed to be Lizard, who was in the
Right.
Amazing Spider-Man, the first one with Andrew Garfield. The rumors are that he is in this movie, and then I believe in the trailer there's like one frame of possible Lizard confirmation in there, but still nothing set, like nothing definitive. Uh, but as far as this poster goes, I think we only really see a tease of 4 villains, and that's Doc Ock, Sandman, Green Goblin, and Electro.
Excellent. So, second question I had for you is it's
Yeah.
kind of interesting because not interesting. It's reason I ask it because they kind of talk about it. They leak some stuff saying that, or there's a quote by Tom Holland, I believe, that's saying that the characters are going to be suffering in a sense, like the characters that you love are going to be going through a lot of things, and that make you feel emotion on the different struggles that they go through. And in the beginning, there was a lot of complaints about the way MCU was portraying Spider-Man, because Spider-Man in the comics is he struggles, right?
Yeah.
He's a character that goes through a lot of struggles, a lot of everyday things. Like his gift is a curse in a sense to him, because
Yeah. Mhm.
while he has these amazing powers, he struggles to pay bills because he's all out night web slinging. Obviously, he in the comics they show him having that, taking pictures of Spider-Man. He takes them and sells them to Daily Bugle, but that doesn't pay him a lot. Um, he struggles with his grades in school again because he's web slinging everywhere. Even though he's a really smart kid, he's a genius of sorts, but he still doesn't have a lot of time to study. Obviously, other things as far as his relationships are concerned is always like strained. He's lost people in his story. Obviously, Uncle Ben being the biggest one, and then he's lost, like in the comics, he loses Gwen Stacy,
Mhm.
his first love, if you will. Um, so yeah, he goes through a lot of torment essentially in the comics, and that's what really builds not only him as Spider-Man, but him as Peter Parker as well. And then here, everyone was like, he's kind of being not a rich kid, but he's kind of has like all these, with the Iron Spider-Man and all these suits and things, and kind of being portrayed as like a lot happier, a lot like carefree than he is in the comic. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Like, how did you see him being portrayed in here? And like, did you have an issue with it, or were you like, I don't know if I like it? What are your thoughts on it in general?
I think it's a fair criticism in the very least. Certainly, we've seen this isn't like a rare case where the MCU is different than the comic books, because pretty much the MCU is inspired by the comic books, but not a one for one adaptation. So things are different in general. But I don't mind it too much, because all that really matters when they're adapting characters and stuff, at least my perspective is that you have the spirit of it is there, the spirit of the character, the spirit of the storyline, the spirit of the intention of the what that story is supposed to do, and what it introduces. Um, I think a good example of that is let's see,
Oh,
camera went
you
out. Hold on 1 second. Sorry.
That's all
I
right.
don't know. Let's
It
look at that.
happens. We have technical difficulties. It's all right. It
Hmm.
happens.
I don't know what's going
Um,
on. Let me see what's here. Didn't touch anything.
I think. I mean, as you're figuring that out,
Okay,
up there
there we
you're
go.
back. Never mind. I was just gonna say, I agree with you in the sense that, uh, you know, I, they have the spirit of the character, and I think they were heading towards that. I feel like because they kind of show the adversity of and the end of Far From Home, where he gets obviously revealed as being Peter Parker. He was about to. They're setting it up where he's going to go through a lot of tough stuff, and I think they're sprinkled in throughout the movies too a little bit where they show him not having a lot of money. He says he has like in the movie he even says like all he when he's building his computer and stuff like that, he's like going through like the garbage dump area to find
Yeah,
scrap things like kids that are don't have money, don't have a lot of things, don't or like things kids that do have those things that aren't going to the garbage dump, the waste area to find little scraps and stuff to build their whatever things that they want to build, right? So I think they show bits of it overall, but at times I can understand, like especially with him kind of being taken under Tony Stark, being kind of like his ward in a sense. Like
hmm
they show him being like Robin to Tony Stark's Batman of sorts, in ways. But yeah, I think they're heading towards that. I think that's what they're going to show here, and they kind of alluded to that some of the things that they were saying. But yeah,
I
I'm
think
excited.
I think I'm sorry. I think the one of the reasons why we didn't see is that because one of the reasons why we've been complaining about getting another Spider-Man, the third one, is that we already know the story. Like most people, if you've been watching Marvel movies in the last 20 years, you already know Spider-Man's origin because they've
Right,
told it to you twice. Just like watching a Batman movie, you already know what happened to him when he was a
right.
kid. So we don't need that again, and that's
Rehash
why
it
they
over and
skipped it.
over.
Yeah, that's why they skipped the whole Uncle Ben entirely for this MCU thing because you already know what happened. They just said, spent 2 seconds on it. You already know what happens. You can use your imagination, and they skipped over all of that stuff. But at the same time, just like in the comics, when things got, let's just say, out of hand with some of the what was going on with Spider-Man, and things got a little too, they just wanted to hit the reset button basically, and that's what they did with One More Day, and that's what kind of is happening in No Way Home is the whole hit the reset button and start from scratch and get things back to basics, and that could possibly how No Way Home is uh, we're going to go back to basics where he doesn't have this super advanced technological suit and he'll be just wearing regular duds. Because, I mean, again, like we've seen him in Civil War, his first suit has a computer in it, like already.
Right.
I mean, his original first suit was the homemade suit, but when he was Spider-Man and we first see him in the actual movie, Tony Stark gave him the suit. We haven't seen him in a regular stitched up suit and just regular Spider-Man at all in the MCU. So perhaps after all of this, no more Tony Stark stuff. I would actually be pretty excited for that. And he
Yeah.
just has a regular old stitched up, still looks the same as the Spider-Man suit, just is just something he made and it looks good. Or maybe Aunt May makes it, maybe MJ or whatever, but just not a whole AI. What's the AI's name? Do you remember? In
It
his
was
suit.
I forget. It's a lady
You're right. Yeah,
voice.
yeah.
I forget. I can't remember what they call her. Was it like Catherine? I can't remember.
I
I
can't
think that's
remember,
right.
but yeah, but
I think
just
that's
like
right.
taking that away would be a pretty good step, I think, because again, he's too powerful. I think.
Yeah, like yeah, he shouldn't have all that little things that he And then in the comics too, when after he has like the Iron Spider, he gives it up because
Right.
he strays true to the neighborhood Spider-Man, the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, fighting for like the little guy and things like that. Obviously, granted, he does get involved into bigger things as well, but he stays true to his roots and who he is. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. I'm excited about the movie. I mean, I know this is going to be a major part. I think he is going to be a major part of what Marvel wants to do or MCU wants to do for Phase 4. So it probably be him, Doctor Strange,
Mhm.
and eventually when they try to bring in the Fantastic Four at some point. But I think these two are going to be the big ones to usher in the new MCU because obviously with Cap and Tony being gone, you kind of have to have two other ones that lead in a way. So
Mhm.
it'll be interesting what they do. But sticking to the Spider Verse, if you will, we have a newer trailer for Morbius, who again is a Spider-Man villain, later turned into an anti-hero. But there was a trailer out for that Morbius living vampire. We'll play the trailer really quick for people that might not have seen it yet.
You need a doctor?
I am a doctor.
I should have died years ago.
People all over the world have my disease.
I'm here to find a cure. We have to push the boundaries, take the risks.
If you're gonna run,
Do it now.
People are strange
Dr. Michael Morbius, you've been missing for 2 months.
when you're a stranger.
Then you were found on a container ship that washed up off of Long Island.
Faces look ugly when you're alone.
What did you do to yourself, Doctor?
I wish I knew. I went from dying to being more alive than ever.
It worked.
Not exactly. I have increased strength and speed and some form of bat radar. What else can I do?
There are limits. There has to be.
There's something inside of me. It wants to hunt and consume blood.
Michael.
When you're a stranger. Faces come
Can you control it?
I don't know.
Half the city wants to kill you.
remembers your name.
We haven't had anything this good since that thing in San Francisco.
When you're strange.
The other half wants to control you.
Hey, Dr. Mike, you and I should stay in touch.
I'd do anything to save a life. But I don't know what I'm capable of.
You save lives, you don't take them.
Are you here to heal the world? Or to destroy it?
Who the hell are you, man?
I am Venom. I'm just kidding. It's Dr. Michael Morbius at your service.
So yeah, that's the trailer for Morbius. The second trailer, I should say. They had a first one. This one was released more recently. I think only a couple of weeks ago, right? Not too long.
Week and a half, I think.
A week and a half, yeah. Before we get into the top conversation about the movie itself and everything, what did you think about the trailer?
It was okay. It made the movie look better than I think it's going to be. So I don't think it's going to be, or in the very least, like with Sony, I should say, I feel like they're reaching really hard to try to make their own universe because they have all of these Spider-Man. They have a lot of characters because they own the
Yeah.
movie rights to all Spider-Man adjacent characters. So there's a lot to pick from, but not necessarily all of them are movie worthy. And I didn't never felt that Morbius was that way. Um, but watching the trailer, I was like, okay, well, they're doing enough with the character, enough to legitimize at least one movie. Whether or not you can pull out a trilogy out of this, I don't know, but uh, yeah, that's how I feel. But I think it looks decent in the very least.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm intrigued by it just because. So I know you and I had a little differing opinions on Venom 2. I thought I liked it a little bit more than you did. So because of that, I thought since they did better with Venom 2, I'm intrigued by what they'll do with Morbius. Especially because it's a similar type of character, and not a character, I should say, similar type of dynamic with he and Spider-Man. Right now, Venom is a Spider-Man villain who later becomes an anti-hero. Morbius as well is a Spider-Man villain who later becomes an anti-hero, and obviously he has his own set of comic strips that they do for a little bit, and we'll get into more later on that. But uh, first, we'll show you which comic that he appeared in alongside against Spider-Man. It was issue number 110 of the Amazing
101.
Spider 101. Sorry, 101 of the Amazing Spider-Man. And you see a monster called Morbius, and he's right there. He's fighting, and you see Spider-Man with those arms. The reason he has those is he was kind of going through some issues with his own mutation in that time frame, and it's you find out again of various different things about that angle as well. But it's I think what we want to kind of do is kind of go through these characters with the audience to kind of give a background on who Morbius is, who these other characters in the movie are, so they have a little bit of understanding going into whenever this movie comes out. So first off, let's talk about Michael Morbius, who he is as far as a character. Again, he's called the Living Vampire. He kind of grew up with his background is like he grew up and lived with a rare uh, debilitating like blood conditions, and since he was a very young kid, he was very sheltered by his mom. He only had like one friend that he was like really good friends with. Like them raised in isolation in Greece because of his blood condition. So he's already had like kind of a weird look because of his blood condition. He looked a little strange from other people compared to like disfigured in a sense. Um, and again, he had that one true friend whose name was Emil. Both he and his friend were very intelligent. They grew up and became very acclaimed scientists and biochemists. They researched to create like a cure for Morbius, this condition that eventually gave them earned them a Nobel Prize. Um, and then eventually, how he becomes Morbius, becomes the living vampire. There's like they're doing like I said, they're trying to cure his condition, and there's like an electricity combined with vampire bat DNA that the resulting experiment ends up giving him these powers of a vampire. But he doesn't have the exact same nature of a vampire. He has like obviously the strength, the the lust for blood, but he can't be killed like a regular vampire, like staked through the heart. He's not he doesn't have like the same sensitivity to light. Like he is sensitive to the daylight, but it's not like he can't go in the daylight. It just kind of weakens him, his powers and stuff like that. So kind of give you an idea who Morbius is. Um, Any thoughts that you have on or wanted to share on his character?
Yeah, like actually, two things. First, if you look at Michael Morbius before he was like comic book version, before he became Morbius the Living Vampire, he already looked like a vampire just in general,
Right.
just the way his face and all of that stuff looked, and then he just became a vampire and looks like this. He looks more like a vampire, or just looks like that. And I think that Jared Leto was actually a really good call for this because I
Right.
guess he already looks like a vampire without any makeup. So when I see Jared Leto in the movie, between his beard and the hair slicked back and all that stuff, I'm like, yeah, that looks pretty good for Michael Morbius. And then when he's transformed, like, yeah, that looks really good. So I actually really like the way the visuals look, at least so far in this early, trailer footage for Morbius. And yeah, going back also just to the character, just in case if you're not the type of person that likes to read things or you don't have time, uh, we were talking about it before. You could check out, if especially if you have Disney Plus, the Spider-Man animated series of the '90s has a very yeah, it's like a couple episodes with Morbius that
Right.
feature basically the story that is in that comic book, that Amazing Spider-Man, and all of the stories around it. It still has it in its own, uh, universe of the animated series, because I believe there's like the X-Men are around that. They make a little cameo appearance around that time. Also, Blade makes a cameo appearance around that time. And he might be involved in that. We'll circle back to that later on. But yeah, if you want to check out the Spider-Man animated series, that is a good way to introduce yourself to Morbius without having to read anything. It would, you can watch a couple episodes here and there. The only main difference that you have to keep in mind is that it is an animated show for kids, and they couldn't just have vampires biting necks and sucking on blood. It'd be too violent for 3 o'clock in the afternoon for kids.
Right.
So they had to change that where one, instead of blood that sustains them and they feed on, it was plasma. um, so he had plasma that he needed to absorb from other people instead of blood, and he did it through his hands. He had like little holes in his hands, so instead of biting people, he would just put his hands like on their neck or something, and
Yeah,
he was
it was kind of like
plasma.
like a leech. If a leech would like suck blood out of or something like that, it was like, or like a octopus might have like you know sucking or whatever tentacles, or not tentacles, but like whatever suctions they may have in a
Yeah,
sense. That was
right.
similar to what they had. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
so he would just do that, and that's the only thing. And of course, and him. And then the difference between, and then this is applies to the anime series and comic book, and most likely this movie, is that they call him the living vampire because specifically, one, there are vampires within
Right.
Marvel, that they are vampires. They will, in just in the comic books and probably the movie, they have fangs. They again. um bite people's and eat blood, suck blood to live, and so on. You can think of it as, if you watch the Disney Plus, What If, they had the episode with the Marvel zombies. And even though there wasn't like a whole lot of explanation, you could use your own conventional wisdom about zombies and apply that to the Marvel zombies, and it works. They're undead. I'm not going to go through all of Marvel zombies, but you didn't need that explanation of how zombies worked when they introduced them in that show. And you can think about vampires in the same way. Within Marvel, they work exactly the way that you think they do within Marvel. Like he said, can't have exposure to sunlight, wouldn't stick to the heart, holy cross, holy water, all of that stuff
Right.
actually applies to zombies within Marvel, but there's like a few other little caveats here and there. But for the most part, that's how vampires are within Marvel. Morbius is the living vampire because he got that way through science. You can only be a vampire through either a bite from another vampire that turns you into a vampire, or a bite from a vampire bat. That's the only way to get it to become a vampire within, at least within Marvel. And
Right.
Morbius was turned into a living vampire because it was through science, and then he doesn't have all of those weaknesses that a regular vampire does.
Exactly, and that's why, like I said, the holy water you mentioned, the garlic, silver, any religious scripture, whatever, does not work on Morbius as far as he doesn't it doesn't like repel him or anything like that, because he's not a regular vampire, normal vampire like natural, because like you said, because of science,
Mm-hmm.
gets in
And
it. But there, oh,
Oh yeah,
go ahead.
one thing that I had looked up, and I didn't know this ahead of time, but when I looked this up, apparently when you become a vampire within, at least within Marvel, um, you do get enhanced strength, but that enhanced
Right,
strength is based off of how strong you were before. So if you were a little weakling and you couldn't barely pick up a 20-pound weight, you would get an enhancement of strength of like times 10 or times 20. So that would still be easy. But if you were like a bodybuilder beforehand and then became a vampire, you're like easily lifting cars.
right.
So yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. That is actually a direct correlation on how strong the vampire is based on how strong the human was before they changed.
Right, but it also the strength on, like, if he drinks blood, that also gives him, like,
Right.
gives
Yeah.
people.
Because they're, they need that to live. Yep.
Right,
So
but that also
they're
can give him strength too. Like, kind of, if he's not drinking blood, that makes him weak, and if he
exactly.
is, it can strength. And then later in the comics, he does obviously become like that anti-hero of sorts, where he tries to defend the innocents, and and he does resort to killing, but he kills like the bad guys, if you will. He
Hmm.
does sometimes kill good people too, just because his hunger, his bloodlust gets just too strong, and that he can't control it, and he ends up hurting good people as well. Uh, but going more into this movie, again, we wanted to talk about the cast. We'll pull up the cast really quick here. That we have who are going to be in the movie. We're going to talk about a few of them, and one thing I do want to mention really quick. They show Michael Keaton there, uh, who's Adrian Toomes, who obviously in MCU played the Vulture. So he's going to be in here. So they're connecting that right away. They're connecting the MCU to this movie. So this movie does fall into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
That I'm not sure about, and that's actually where I have issue with, because I
well,
wanted to mention that.
I
Um,
don't think there's any doubt about it, because
well, I think like throughout this trailer, for sure, they're trying to make sure that you understand that this movie is in the same universe as the Venom movie, because he said, "I am Venom," and same the incident in San Francisco. They're referencing stuff from the Venom movie, specifically in the Venom universe.
sure,
But then they have Michael Keaton, Vulture, showing up in there, and he's in the MCU, which is a separate universe from Venom. Then they have the poster with the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man on it as he walks past, which is another universe. And then they have the Daily Bugle logo on the building, which is the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, which is another universe, all in the same trailer. And I think that's kind of, well, for someone like me, it's confusing in the very least. Like,
okay,
how is this all within one universe, but referencing three different ones, four different ones, really? They've got Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man, Venom, and the MCU. So that's like all in one trailer. How could that even be possible? So I think maybe it was an afterthought with the whole Venom post credit scene, that maybe they didn't think about it because they had already filmed the Morbius movie in its entirety, and maybe they got to clean it up later, something like that. But I think as is right now, until I see the movie, but as is right now, things are looking a little confusing to me.
Well, I think also you have to remember. So, No Way Home comes out well before this movie,
Right.
right? So they may have a situation where they're going to combine universes at some, and maybe they do that.
Hmm.
So maybe that sets it up where movies going forward are going to be all in the same universe in a sense. Maybe we'll see. I guess.
Hmm.
I guess we'll see what they do. I'm guessing that Michael Keaton, Adrian Toomes, because they don't really say his name, they just show him in there, right? They don't show him. Obviously, they don't have him listed as a character, like the character name. They just have his name that he's in the movie, and then he has lines in the movie, but they don't say his name, like what they
They
call him.
don't. They do have him
So
in this prison outfit that,
right,
which is
his
the
prison
same one
outfit.
when he was in
Exactly, exactly,
Homecoming. So
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. But remember too, and I guess I'm contradicting myself a little bit here too now, because I remember when I said, remember in Disney Plus when they had Evan Peters as, coming in as Quicksilver, but then he wasn't Quicksilver, he was some other character that looked like Evan Peters. So we'll see. I guess you're right.
yeah.
I guess we'll see what happens. But I'm assuming that it is probably Michael Keaton, Adrian Toomes, and um, obviously maybe MCU when they do No Way Home, Far From Home, I should say. It'll kind of just combine the universes in a way. But going down the characters of the show, of the movie, that I think there's three important ones as far as Morbius is concerned. Um, the main one, I think the antagonist is going to be. We'll see if he's the main antagonist. I'm assuming he is, because knowing by the comic book, Matt Smith, uh, who the actor Matt Smith plays Lucius Lucius Crown, who's also known as the Hunger. He's also like a living vampire, just the way Morbius is. Although if you have that picture, you can put it up. So yeah, that's Matt Smith as Lucius Crown. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I can't
Yeah, I
remember.
have no idea.
I think it's
Or Lucius is, I'm fine with
Lucius,
it either way.
because so Lucius Crown, aka the Hunger again. In the comics, so Lucius Crown in the comics is a Hydra agent. He was eventually, like, he tries to do experiment on Morbius. He gets abducted. He abducts Morbius to try to do an experiment on him. Um, he then later gets transformed by Morbius into a living vampire like himself. So again, he has the same condition as after the fact as Morbius. Like, has the strengths of a vampire, the supernatural abilities, limit, all that stuff. But again, he can't be killed like a regular vampire would be. And again, because of the vampire-like condition, the hunger forces him to ingest fresh blood on a regular basis to sustain his life and like vitality. So again, that his villain name becomes the Hunger. Um, so yeah, he's gonna be. I'm assuming the main antagonist. I don't know if they'll show him becoming the Hunger in the movie, how they're gonna portray him as the antagonist. Maybe later in the movie they make have him becoming the Hunger, like the way, if you remember in Venom 2, where they do like a teaser of Carnage's son being born.
Hmm.
With the police officer, the
Yeah.
sergeant, I should say. So maybe they'll tease it. I don't know. What are your thoughts on Lucius Crown, Matt Smith playing Lucius Crown, and like, what do you think
I'm
about the
really
character?
curious to see what he is going to look like when he's transformed, assuming that he actually becomes Hunger in the actual movie, because we haven't seen any of that. There's nothing in the trailer that suggests that he will be, but we know that he's there. Um, but we don't also if he doesn't, we don't really know who the villain is, or what's like what Morbius is going to be fighting. He's just going to be fighting generic thugs on the street, other vampires, regular vampires, and even to that extent, like how many regular vampires are we going to see in this movie, if any? And maybe you know this answer, because I should have looked this up before. I didn't check, but what happens when Morbius bites someone? Do you know? Because a regular vampire, they turn into a vampire if they're biting someone. But what happens with Morbius when he bites? Do you know?
You know, so it's funny in the comic, to my knowledge, he doesn't turn them into a vampire. Um, I can't double check. You know, it's funny. I kind of get confused between the the comic sometimes and the '90s cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
Let me double check here.
But yeah, like because even this again, he's a living the Loxius or Locious Crown character, Hunger, is also a living vampire. So he would presumably, if he's biting people, that and maybe they change, I don't know, but the same thing would happen if Morbius did that. And Morbius's whole thing is that he feels bad about biting folks and could, presumably killing them or turning them um, into vampires. He doesn't want to do that. So he still needs to have blood to eat, to feed, to live, but he's very reluctant on biting anyone. So I would think if Hunger is the villain, he probably is pretty enthusiastic about it, or in the very least, he wouldn't care.
Oh,
So,
you know what he does? So he can turn them into like the persuasive vampires, and like I said,
okay,
he turns the Hunger or Matt Locious Crown into a persuasive vampire, so he can turn them into like things like him. But I think that has to be like where he really like, you know, normally I believe he like kills people because his hunger is so strong that he'll just suck them dry. I think, but yeah, if he does, he can turn people into like the persuasive vampires like himself. But there's a cure for that though. Like there's like a cure from you if you take his blood, and there's like a serum that can be made from Morbius blood to cure people that get turned into persuasive vampires. Um, but that same serum can't work on Morbius.
hmm,
That's something I do remember from the comic. So that's basically there's ways that he turns people into the persuasive vampires, but then they can be cured. Um, that's something that that they do show.
okay.
Right. So, but the next character, I think that it's gonna be his love interest. I would imagine that because he is in the comics that she is his fiance. So Adria Arjona, who plays Martine Bancroft. So again, in the comics, she's his girlfriend and secretary uh, of Dr. Morbius. She accompanies him to the ceremony when he receives the award for the Nobel Prize. And Martine also becomes a true vampire. Like she becomes a real vampire.
Hmm.
Because she wants to, spend eternity with Morbius, but she becomes not a persuasive vampire, but a real vampire to do that because she loves him so much. She wants to become that. But we'll see what they do, obviously, in the movie as far as their relationship is concerned. If it'll be the same kind of relationship, and then obviously we'll see if they hint on her eventually becoming a vampire or not.
Yeah, I would think so, probably. At some point, maybe not in this movie, but yeah, I really like the way the vampire looks in this picture. I think it's like a really cool design. But yeah, I would think so. I just like the love interest in Venom. I kind of feel like there's a lot of too many similarities between the Morbius movie and the Venom movie. They're almost formulaic in a way that you're just going through the same type of, because they're both anti-heroes. They got the love interest, they got the cop. We'll get to that in a second. But they got the cop or the law enforcement character involved in some kind of role, like a supporting role or whatever. And it's all just feeling like that. So like with Venom, the love interest character was also she became the female Venom, or she carried Venom and whatever, but she did have the symbiote. And I think at some point, we'll see the female uh character here become a vampire.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they go about that. Obviously, like you said, in Venom, they have the love interest there, so it'll be interesting to see how they go proceed with this in this movie. And then finally, I think the one character, the last character, I think that's going to be a pretty important one is Simon Stroud, who's played by Tyrese Gibson. Obviously, they changed the character a lot compared to what the comic book is. So in the comics, he's a CIA agent who eventually becomes friends with Black Widow. So there's connections there, and he eventually leaves the CIA to join the NYPD. But it looks like in this movie, he's an FBI agent who's hunting Michael Morbius.
Yeah, really don't have much to add. I mean, like I said, he's like the cop character that's just like same as like the Venom movie. But I mean, he's gonna be the support that Michael Morbius needs. Probably a motivating force for him to stay being good and not killing people. Maybe even his hookup to get blood, because again, Morbius needs the blood, so he can't be constantly killing innocent folks. So he's going to need some exposure to to criminals. Um, so maybe this will be his way. Is like, yeah, that's a bad guy there, or there's a terrorist cell over there. There's a uh, drug dealer over there, etc., etc. Those are bad guys. It's just something that will allow for him to be able to feed without feeling all the guilt of hurting someone innocent.
Yeah, it'll be like I said. I I know as we'll wrap up here. I'm personally I'm excited, like I said, about the movie. I'm intrigued by the movie because I did like how, again, how Sony did um, Venom 2. And I do think they're going to try to line up a lot of these things with, like I said, from No Way Home. They're going to do a lot of connecting, and getting the universes aligned to be able to get like Tom Holland involved somehow with these characters as well. And I'm really looking forward to. I know we mentioned like Venom probably won't be in No Way Home, but maybe there's going to be some kind of teaser about him, maybe like a post credit scene, or something's going to happen where somehow they connect it there. It'll be very interesting to see how they do that. And like I said, to go back to No Way Home, Tom Holland mentions like this is the end of the trilogy of the first set of movies, like the Home series, if you will, like the Homecoming, Far From Home, No Way Home. That doesn't mean Spider-Man is done, obviously, in the MCU.
Hmm.
It just means they're ending the story of who, like, this character, like they developed him, Peter Parker, Spider-Man character up to now, and then from going forward, he's gonna be this completely different character in sorts. And all the supporting cast in the movie are gonna be completely different too, as far as who they are. And I know there was, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about the Easter egg, or not the Easter eggs, but like leaks that happened, but I mean, obviously, there were some leaks that happened as well about No Way Home, or that they'll be interesting. They're kind of again
You know what? I
long
don't
loop.
know anything about the leaks. I've heard of them, but I haven't looked into them because
Oh, okay.
I don't like things ahead of time.
Okay, well, I won't say anything
But
then.
but I do want to quickly mention, as I mentioned before, there are vampires in the Marvel universe, um, among other things, not just
All
vampires,
right,
werewolves, and other supernatural creatures. With that being said, they can do that because it's kind of I can't remember the term for it, but it's just kind of like a general concept sort of thing that they can just roll. That's like how they can mention Superman in any movie they did in Eternals, like the Eternals. Oh, he says there's laser beams in the cape. It's that guy. They can mention Superman because it's not specifically them copying Superman, but it's more of a pop culture reference.
right,
That being said, um, the they have Dracula as well within Marvel, and he's actually
right,
been a character within Marvel well before the Fantastic Four, before Iron Man, before all these characters, etc. Because there was a time where after Captain America and the World War II era of superhero comic books, that superhero comic books kind of plummeted and they weren't popular. And horror comic books in the 1950s were really big, and they had Dracula and all these other supernatural type things. That being said, I don't expect to see Dracula appear in Morbius movies, but I think there would be a really good place for him to be in Blade movies. Because I think so having something more broad and appealing. Because also Dracula is not a Spider-Man character. Dracula is again more open ended, and if we're gonna have more Blade, Morbius type villains, they have to be basically Spider-Man villains first, or Spider-Man adjacent characters. Dracula would be a character that would appear in Blade, but I think that having Morbius cross over with Blade makes more sense than Morbius crossing over with Spider-Man. I think Spider-Man could come over to cross over in his movies, if that makes sense. But if you wanted to have Morbius have more appeal, putting him in a Blade movie where they fight Dracula makes more sense to me, and I think that would be cool.
that's true. That's true. It's funny you mentioned Blade. Obviously, MCU is going to be doing a Blade movie. They haven't announced anything. Obviously, they casted who's going to play Blade as Marshall Ali. I always know if I'm mispronouncing his first name. I probably
Mahershala,
am. Marshall, Ali,
Mahershala. Mhm.
Mahershala Ali.
Yep, that's
He's
it.
going to be he's going to be playing Blade. Ironically, a funny thing is, so there in Blade 2, like the Wesley Snipes one, the ending there was like an alternate ending where they teased Morbius, but they never. I don't know if you ever knew that, but yeah, they
I
teased
haven't
Morbius.
watched Blade in a long time, and I really need to.
No, but that wasn't in the movie. It was like
Okay,
an alternate ending, and they changed it. They went a completely different direction, obviously, but they had teased Morbius because like they're on like a rooftop, and you look at and it's like the daylight, and you look out ahead, and Morbius is standing on the rooftop. So like I said, Morbius is the only vampire that can be out in the sunlight. Again,
just like Blade.
just like Blade, yeah. So like
That's why it makes sense
obviously.
for him to move over with Blade.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But obviously, Morbius is weaker in the sunlight. He's not as strong as he is at night. But
Hmm.
still, he can be out in the daylight as opposed to other vampires. But again, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do as far as how they connect. If Morbius they do with Blade, or if they again continue to go towards the Spider-Man. The only reason I think they'll do push towards Spider-Man is because obviously Sony owns all the Spider-Man rights, so they want to keep, that's why, like you said earlier, the only reason they're, pushing these characters out is because they want to keep the rights to Spider-Man. They don't want to lose those rights, because if they lose those rights, and they automatically goes to MCU, because it goes back to Marvel, which obviously Disney owns Marvel, so then MCU would have them. But yeah, that's pretty much a wrap for today's episode. Did you have any final thoughts before we close out?
That is it. Yeah, I'm good.
That's it. All right. Thank you again to all the viewers and the listeners who will be listening on the podcast side. Again, you can follow me on Science Flixtion, and then you can follow Carl at Ninja Chortle. And obviously, please add us if you have any questions about the show. If you want us to talk about a certain topic that you're interested in, doesn't have to be present stuff. Like there's things in the past movies or anything like that you may have interest in. Please, obviously, send us your feedback. But till next time, we will see you later.
All right. See you guys.